Hey everyone, it's been over 2 minutes and I haven't been raped yet. But I have had my name put on Sweden's hate speech list. Hi, I'm Diana Davison, and I'm a supporter of unfettered freedom of speech. While what you say can and does have consequences, such as rejection by peers or even family, hate speech laws are unconstitutional. The Canadian Supreme Court acknowledges that it's unconstitutional, but in a split decision, the precedent, R versus Keegstra, the majority allowed the unconstitutional law as an exception. The dissenting opinion was written by Canada's current Chief Justice, Beverley McLachlin. The reasons given for their dissent eloquently address the arguments against limiting freedom of speech, and I won't try to summarize them here. Instead, I'd like to use a fun example of what is meant by the expression, "First they came." Let's revisit this highly quoted warning. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Now look at the story of a Nazi pug dog. It's a prank video made by a guy training his girlfriend's cute pug dog to do
the least cute thing that I could think of, which is a Nazi.
That's right. Remember that. To him, this is the most uncute thing that he could imagine, and it resulted in the dog learning to do a Hitler salute.
Sieg Heil! Sieg Heil!
And joking as if the dog understood what the salute meant.
Jews.
And the guy got arrested under hate crime laws.
I was just released to await my court date while the police can build a case against me.
Now, as stupid as all that is, it gets even stupider. When a neighbor found out about the Nazi Pug video, she expressed contempt.
What's wrong? And then she started going, "You Nazi bastard, you're a Nazi bastard," and everything. So we just went, "Oh, okay," and then drove away.
But included vandalism.
And then we came back like about an hour or two later to one of the fucking dog shit bins from the park flung against my door.
So, obviously, dude calls the police.
The fact that she did that and called me a Nazi bastard, I didn't care about that. I didn't care that I got called a Nazi bastard. What I was annoyed at is the fact that she covered my front door in fucking dog shit.
And they arrest the neighbor for a hate crime.
But the police didn't care about the dog shit. They didn't care about Sue being scared. They homed right in on her calling me a Nazi bastard and charged her with hate crime.
See, the police cared more about the words the vandal used than the actual vandalism. So here we see that those people, saying that words are a form of violence, have so clearly lost perspective they can't even sort out what the real crimes are. They probably won't even understand this video.
I didn't care about the comment that she made. I cared about what she did. Like, that was a good welcome mat and we had to throw it in the bin because it was covered in fucking dog shit.
In Canada, there have been 2 highly publicized arrests in the last 2 months. Most recently, Kevin J Johnston was arrested for hate speech against Muslims. Now, the videos highlighted in this article are actually in tune with a lot of public outrage that religion was being allowed back into schools so long as it wasn't Christian. After courts determined the Lord's Prayer violated the rights of other students, we thought this point was clear. There would be no religion allowed. Why just one? And in June, Barry Winters was arrested for hate speech against pretty much everyone. Now, I'll get to that part in a moment, but I want to point out a paragraph in this article that states 3 other prosecutions took place in this province alone over the last 5 or 6 years, but they claim that it's very rare. Well, that's not rare enough for a law that we know is unconstitutional. But the reasons they wanted to prosecute Mr. Winters, who passed away before trial, is actually proof that he shouldn't have been prosecuted at all. First of all, when you say offensive things about everyone,
Nothing sacred.
and you've been doing it for years without anyone actually having violence enacted against them, it's proof that your speech is not resulting in violence. There's another source of offensive comment that also has no limits on who they'll mock.
What turns a normal, fat little 8-year-old boy into a vicious, hate crime-committing racist?
Who is Token?
He's a black kid that goes to my school.
Black? Did you say black? You called him black?
He is black.
Oh, he said it again!
Now, what has shocked me the most about the recent hate crime charges is that I've seen a few journalists supporting it. I mean, of all the people, right? Journalists have some protection when they work for mainstream media against charges like this, but an independent citizen journalist contacted me on Facebook warning me not to support Kevin Johnston against the hate crime charges. His argument was disingenuous and slippery, and when I confronted him on the issues, he even went so far as to send me this link. If you look at the video title and then watch the clip, you'll see that it's a lie. I'm not going to play it for you here, but Mr. Johnston actually warns the MP in question that her proposed bill would rouse a known segment of the population and would likely get her shot. Johnston goes further to say that he'll be smiling if that happens, but he clearly isn't calling for people to do it. It would be the smile of someone who found out that they are good at making predictions and feeling vindicated that they understand the world a little bit better than the poor sod currently lying on the ground. In honor of the late Christopher Hitchens, I offer the following brief clips of his infamous Canadian free speech debate to people who only want to protect speech that they approve of.
In fact, it could be just as plausibly argued that the Yiddish-speaking socialists who were jailed by the excellent and overpraised Judge Oliver Wendell Holmes were the real firefighters, were the ones who were shouting fire when there really was fire in a very crowded theatre. Anyone who wants to say anything abusive about or to me is quite free to do so, and welcome, in fact, at their own risk. It's not just the right of the person who speaks to be heard. It is the right of everyone in the audience to listen and to hear. And every time you silence somebody, you make yourself a prisoner of your own action because you deny yourself the right to hear something.
Please do go find the link below in my description or look it up yourself to see his full speech. Now, Americans may laugh about my accent and think that Canada is barbaric in our abysmal protection of free speech, and, well, they may be right about my accent, but I'd like to draw your attention to an American situation taking place right now that shows what happens when the courts stop caring about freedom of speech and freedom of the press. This is the case of Daniel Holtzclaw, currently serving over 200 years in prison for crimes he didn't commit. For those who don't believe that he's innocent, well, the outrageousness of the response to his appeal should make it clear. Journalists, not content to be told that they can't know something, filed Freedom of Information requests for emails to get around the sealed motions, and were able to catch the district attorney, David Prater, lying that the forensic expert who testified in Daniel's trial is having all her cases pulled for retesting. So this is why we have freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Without it, the state turns into an unstoppable force of corruption with limitless resources with which they can throw you in prison, fabricate the case against you, and then hide the evidence. So you Americans should not be sitting there feeling so smug. Here's an interesting case in Canada of a private prosecution against media watchdog Frank Magazine claiming publication ban violation, but it's actually just an attempt to have all negative press removed about a woman making false allegations of sexual assault. She went to the media for publicity and didn't like what Frank Magazine found out about her. Well, not surprising, but some typists, as Andrew Douglas calls shoddy journalists, actually support Tara McPherson's actions. Interestingly, the Chronicle Herald, which published support for this bit of nonsense, would be guilty of the same crime themselves if Tara McPherson succeeds. Having named the parents of a child engaged in a community services protective action, well, this was published only a few weeks earlier. How short and myopic is the selective memory of a publication who forgot why we have freedom of the press. Sweden may have it in for my good self right now, but I assure you, they'll be coming for you next. One of the important things about allowing people to speak is so that you know which countries not to travel to. But if you don't care about Count Dankula and his Nazi Pug, and you don't care about amateur journalists in Canada, or even clever ones like Andrew Douglas, and you don't even care about Daniel Holtzclaw's secret trial in the US of fucking A, well, where are you going to live? One of the commenters on my Facebook inquiry about this issue, who I'm sure means well, and I'm thankful for his comment, said that the public are too stupid to be trusted with unmonitored speech. Of course, he must be presuming that he himself is not a member of that stupid portion of the public, and he's also assuming we can determine who else isn't too stupid to hear an opinion, so we can have debate about things. Well, if his reasoning is correct, it means that nobody should be allowed to hear anything, and thus no speech should be permitted at all because there are too many stupid people. I'm aware that there are places where only approved speech is permissible. They're not places any of us want to live. It's easy to protect speech that you agree with. The real test is whether or not you'll protect the speech of people you detest. If you don't, then you don't believe in free speech at all. I'm tempted to delete any comments on this video which don't support unfettered freedom of speech and think it should be limited, but I'm not going to do that because I'd rather expose you as a fucking lunatic who doesn't understand the principle of the law. And the Canadian Supreme Court judges who support the Keegstra decision are on that list of idiots.